By nightfall, we'd made it back to the station on a spare. It was bad enough driving on only 3 good tires and having a monstrous corpse stinging up the whole van, but on top of that, Martin's injury just seemed to be getting worse with each passing moment. Long, strange streaks of dark gray were spreading across his upper chest. Olivia was monitoring him, keeping a cool rag on top of the wound, as he kept screaming every other minute at the top of his lungs. But you wouldn't know it if you saw Mr. Kearney's face. His features were like those of a man that had just bagged a prize elk on a mighty hunt. I decided once we were settled, it was going to be high time I had a serious talk about all of this. Once a few miles out, Kearney radioed to get a stretcher ready. Natalie and Jim were there at the garage before we even pulled up. Blonde gasped as she saw Martin's injury, rushing to his aid, and Jim moved the stretcher towards the passenger door. "That's not for him. Move the bug," Mr. Kearney instructed, kicking open the van door. Jim hesitated for a second, then complied by helping Olivia lift the creature onto the stretcher and dragging it towards the lower stairs. Martin nearly collapsed, though, as he got out of the van, and Natalie and I had to use our combined strength to get him inside. "I'll take him to the bunker," she offered. I nodded and followed the others up to the control room. 5 minutes later, Mr. Kearney had grabbed a bottle of bourbon from his office and a pack of Marlboros and was insisting we needed to celebrate. When Olivia and I didn't seem to share his enthusiasm, he sighed and pressed one of the intercoms to speak with the doctors downstairs. "Is the specimen secure?" There was a pause, and then a sharp crackle. "As good as it can be. I can start the examination immediately," Jim said. "Good deal. Grab yourself a bite to eat and get to work," Kearney said before popping open the bottle and pouring himself a glass. Just as he finished, Martin let out another cry of pain that reverberated through the station, and I muttered, maybe the doctor should focus on our living patient first. "You should have a drink and relax, Mr. Pruitt. We owe this victory to your fine skills behind the wheel," the old man said. "I appreciate that, but maybe it's time to start talking about the elephant in the room." Olivia took a glass from her father and downed it before remarking, "I'm sorry, I thought this was what you signed up for." I slammed my fist down on one of the panels and remarked, "I came to chase storms. You never said a thing about going out to bag and tag a damn Jersey Devil." Mr. Kearney chuckled. "Settle down, boy." That just made me more upset. I hopped up and snatched the drink out of his hand, getting right in his face. "You're going to tell me exactly what's going on around here, and you're going to tell me now." A crack from a shotgun caused me to jump back as a bullet zipped right through the air and shot between our faces. I looked towards the stairs to see a newcomer standing there wearing a long duster and a low-brimmed hat. The gunslinger swirled his weapon in his right hand and then slung it back onto his belt holster before walking down towards us. Olivia placed her drink down and shouted, "Caleb! Thank God you're all right!" She ran up to the gunslinger and hugged him. He hugged her back, then marched up towards me, grabbing some cashews out of a little bowl beside me and crunching on them. "Beacon's in place, boss," he muttered as he quickly sized me up. "Who the hell do you think you are?" "I'm sorry, weren't you listening? Caleb Mitchum, trapper, hunter, and all-around badass." He paused as he pushed me away from his employer and added, "Bigger question here is, who are you? Why is the great Paul Kearney putting up with your bullshit?" "Caleb, this is Dylan. He's our new cameraman," the old man gestured to me as the hunter grabbed up another handful of snacks and walked towards the control monitor. He looked at one of the screens where Natalie was getting Martin rested and listened to the black man scream before chuckling. "I swear, I leave you for 5 minutes, whole operation goes to pot," Caleb said. "We've got one, though. Jim started the extraction," Olivia said excitedly. "Well, that's the first bit of good news I've heard," he agreed as I crossed my arms and growled, "I'm sorry, but who is this guy?" The hunter cocked his gun and rammed it straight under my Adam's apple. "You deaf?" he snarled, as he backed me up against the wall and added, "And let me clarify again with you. I'm the one that has kept these people alive for the past 3 years. And you?" He gently placed the finger on the trigger as he gave me a glare. "You're the one whose head I'll blow off if you ever put a finger on any of them ever again. We clear?" I swallowed hard and muttered, "Clear as crystal." Caleb held the weapon against me for a long moment, then laughed before turning towards the Kearneys. "Now we got that cleared up, let's go see the bug," he said, clasping his hands together and moving towards the exit. Olivia and her father followed him at a slower pace And right before they left the control room, the hunter paused and looked towards me. "Dylan, aren't you coming?" I nodded and darted my eyes down to the floor as the three of us followed the newcomer down the stairs and into the station's basement. A series of long winding corridors led us to what looked like had once been a maintenance room of some kind, but now, thanks to Jim, it had become a makeshift morgue. The creature lay on the metal slab with its multiple appendages strapped down to the side and a long tube running into its skull, the kind you might find for oxygen and surgery. Jim was just finishing up a couple of lights as we walked in and watched from a small observational ramp. Thanks to the additional illumination, it was clear to see that the place where Jim and Kearney had struck the creature had completely calcified. In fact, most of the gray skin now seemed to have hardened to the point where only an extremely sharp blade had a chance of penetrating the shell. As if reading my mind, Jim hooked up a bone saw and began to slice the creature's chest. It sounded like a drill smashing into solid earth. Behind us, the door swung open again and Natalie walked in, gripping the metal banister as Jim kept cutting. "How is he?" Olivia whispered to the blonde. "Resting, but in a lot of pain. Anything yet?" she replied. "You know I can hear you," Jim interrupted as he made another incision. "Well?" Mr. Kinney growled. Lasher wiped sweat from his brow and remarked, "This would probably go a lot faster without so many prying eyes." The rest of the crew ignored him, though, as blade hit the strange organic material within the beast. It smelled like dead fish. A moment later, the blade hit something metallic, and Jim stopped the saw before turning to Caleb. "Grab me those incisors," the doc ordered, passing the tool to the stout man. Caleb and the rest of us watched as he used the curved metal tool to spread the creature's chest wide open. From under the twisted bones and fatty tissue, something gleamed like a diamond. Jim repositioned the surgical instruments and then carefully extracted what looked like a long metal tube. Once out of the creature, he proceeded to grab a few cleaning towels and wipe blood and guts off the discovery. "Well?" Kearney said again, this time more insistently. "A watched pot never boils," Lasher quipped, as he sat on a rolling stool and scooted over to a set of computer screens. Grabbing what looked like some sort of extension cable, Jim cleaned it properly as well, and then connected it directly to the side of the metallic object. Immediately, a series of zeros and ones began to appear on the screen. "We're in business," he said excitedly. Olivia squeezed her father's hand excitedly, but the moment of happiness was short-lived. A second later, a frown crossed Jim's face. Shit, he mumbled as he began to input a long algorithm of code. "What? What is it?" Olivia said, releasing her father and walking down to the screen to see what he saw. "Lasher, what's going on?" Kearney asked. "Just give me a second," he said as he typed furiously. But a second later, the screen went black. "God damn it," he said, pushing himself away from the screen in frustration. The air in the room seemed to grow heavy as I watched for some type of explanation. "It's not a match," Jim muttered as he looked to his boss for an apology. "You sure?" Kearney asked as he checked the screen himself. "Positive. Second it left that cluster, we lost it," he confirmed. Kearney pushed him aside and ran a few numbers himself. "Try it again," he demanded. "Paul, I know my stuff," Jim said with a deep sigh. I waited as they stared down at each other, and finally Caleb broke the silence by saying, "It's exactly why I told you not to go out without me." Olivia gave him a glare and marched out of the room. Then Natalie grabbed at the bar again and muttered, "Mr. Kearney, what does that mean for Martin?" The old man sighed and looked at her with that look that only meant more bad news. "You know what that means, Natalie." She shook and tried her best not to cry. Then she ran out of the room as well. "Natalie!" I called out. "Let her go." "There's nothing to be done," Caleb advised. I stared at the three remaining members of KTHU and ran my fingers through my hair again before muttering, "Okay, someone please tell me what's going on." Jim shook his head and muttered, "You dense, son. Martin's infected, but we got less than 12 hours. My jaw dropped. I looked towards Kearney for confirmation. The old man simply nodded. Well, we have to do something. Find an antidote for the goddamn things, I insisted. That would be just wasting valuable resources, Caleb pointed out. So what? We just let him die? Is that what happened to Nick too? I shouted in response. Mr. Kearney let out a long sigh and then turned to Jim and muttered, Lasher, see to it Martin's comfortable. He started hobbling up the stairs to me, and I muttered, look, I don't care what your guard dog over there says. I demand an explanation for all of this. Right now. I don't want to tell you again, boy, Caleb said, reaching for his pistol. Mr. Kearney waved his hand dismissively and remarked, No, it's okay. Dylan's right. I do owe him that much, all things considered. Caleb didn't seem to like that, but pushed the door open for his boss and added with an icy glare at me, Fine, but I'll be joining you, so don't even think about losing your temper again. I sighed in relief and responded, It's cool with me. Lead the way. To be continued. Hey there kids, it's me, MrCreepyPasta, and as always, I want to tell you thank you so much for watching tonight's video. If you guys are interested in finding new books from authors that you hear of on this channel, please pay attention to the links in the description down below. For one, you can always get a hold of my books, which are the Creepypasta Collections Volume 1 and Volume 2, but also from a bunch of my other friends, such as Jack Townsend, where Tales from the Gas Station Volume 4 is currently available. You can find a link in the description, as well as a link to all of my audiobooks I've done for volumes 1 through 3. And yes, trust me, I'm going to be working on 4. It's just going to take me a while. And as always, I want to give a very big thank you to everybody who is on my Patreon. That means everybody. Everyone who is from the $1 tier all the way up to the, God, why do you pledge that much tier? But I especially want to give a big thank you to Jordan Alexander Sanchez, Stephanie Butler, Bobby Karman, Tristain Pelton, Chance Burnett, Diana Kraus, Kyle Reznak, Happy Birthday Ollie Whale, David Martin, scare-ington, the Unkempt, Angelus, Spanky, Snootchie bootchies, Autistic Spidey, phruty, Seclude, Lupita Galvan, That Creepy Chick, Tyler Fletcher, Rebecca Harper, Merxinum, Red Shadow Cat, Xavier the Cheyenne, Demyx, Sean Cadieu-baker, 6 Gay Rats in a Trenchcoat, Turtleman, Rob Likes Sharp Things, Chaos Arts, Cryolinian, Zachary Gruffius, Lord Life's Best, Goreng Trimagacy, Maria Walker, Pain Gravy, Crazy Kid, Mr. Marcus Blitz, Aka Limchalk, Dirt Diver 030, Matt Bach, Naughty Devil, Voice of Sands, Coffee Zombie, Matthew McNeese, Shelly J, Jeremy H, Reltazol, Ficomel, Nana, Deleted Account, Melted Lake, Tali Sue, William King, Darth Miver, Michael Ortiz, Satanic Aries, Nessie, Bardo Hawk 764, Lambda M98, Harley, Sashi Suzaku, Croconut 509, Kaylee Ambrose, Suji Campbell, Stricken, Freddy Krueger, Nicholas Zicardi, Happy Birthday Jason Wilson, Lisa Cottrell, Caspian, Hades Nephew, Tater Chip, Acid System, Prozac and Pancake Appreciation Society, Benjamin Welvart, Kiri the Sloth, Fester's Lampshade, Sky Harbor, Nico Kyle, Rafael Rodriguez, The Ginger Bros, Aaron Stormcrow, Daniel Polson, and Corey Kenshin. As always, you guys are the MVPs. Everybody who's on that list, everybody who's on that Patreon, everybody who's in the description, thank you so much. And if you'd like to join this list of names that I horribly mispronounce, head over to patreon.com/MrCreepyPasta. And as always, everyone, sweet dreams.